you all so much for having me to come here. It's really an honor to be able to speak and stand in front of you and just share a little bit about my personal testimony with all of you. So thank you so much for having me to be here. And so I realize that this has been a long day for everyone. You've eaten, you've driven from a long way, so I don't want to take up a lot of your time. And so now, something to know about me, I grew up in the South, and so I used to go to churches down south where a preacher would ask if he could put a dime in our meter, which means, can I have like about 10 minutes of your time to preach? And it was never 10 minutes though. It was always like 30, 50 minutes, and then he would stop preaching. But so I'm gonna ask you ladies, can I put a dime in your meter tonight? But I'm really just gonna take 10 minutes, and you can time me and make sure that I only take 10 minutes of your time. And so, hasn't the program though tonight been? It's not much more that I really need to say. A lot has been said tonight about having hope in a hopeless world, but what I want to talk to you a little bit more about is making the discussion a little bit more personal, right? So for me, I know in my life, the times that I felt the most hopeless has been when things came into my own home. So, you know, we can talk about Ferguson, we can talk about Eric Gartner, those things are terrible. You know, those things make us feel hopeless. But when I felt the most hopeless has been when things are going on in my own life. So when my own marriage is on the rocks, when my own family relationships start to break down, when I feel like I can't talk to people, when I haven't always been a doctor, so when I've had to decide which bill I'm not going to pay this month, when unemployment has come into my home or my family's home, when terminal illnesses have come into my home, that's when I felt the most hopeless. And so me as a psychologist, I like to get people to sort of think about their own lives and what's going on within you, because how many of us know it's so easy for us to focus on the world and what's going on in Sarah's life and in Rebecca's life, and we lose sight of what's going on in our lives. And so we have storms going on in our personal lives, and so what I want to talk about is how can we have hope in that situation when it's at home. So that's what I'm talking about, and I'm keeping in mind dime in your meter. Okay, so I said I'm a doctor, so I got my PhD from the University of Oregon, but like I said, I am a human. I'm a human being. So something that I've really struggled with since as early as I can remember is feeling not good enough. So feeling like I'm an imposter. Like I don't deserve to be here. I don't deserve to be a doctor. I don't deserve any of the blessings that God has given to me. And if I let somebody in close enough and they talk to me for long enough, they'll see that I'm fake. Like I've been putting on a front. I've just been getting by all of this time in life, all of these accolades that I've gotten. I've just been getting by, but I really didn't deserve it. And so that's hard to deal with. And even though like saying this to you, I know it's not true. I know I'm not a stupid person. I know I'm intelligent. But how many of us know that we believe things a lot of times that are not true? Especially when it's been instilled in us from a very young age. So some people were told that you're ugly and you're never going to be anything in life and nothing good is going to come to you, that you were a mistake. And so sometimes we hold on to those things and they harm us and they make us, you know, feel like we will never amount to anything. And for some people, that's your struggle, and it's like a repeated struggle that keeps coming up. So this thing for me, this imposter syndrome, is really, it keeps coming. I work with it, God is working with me on it, but it comes up from time to time. And so I felt this way for many years, and you guys might be sitting there and saying like, wait a minute, she is a psychologist supposed to be helping other people, and she got her own issues. What's really going on? And I would say, yes, I do have my own issues, but that makes me human, right? I never want to get to the point where I can't relate to people. I never want to get to that point where I can't connect with people on a human level. So when I'm talking to you in therapy, I understand what you're dealing with because I have my own stuff that I'm dealing with. And also, I appreciate my struggles too because they help me realize that I can, in and of my own strength, accomplish nothing. And all that I have and all that I'll ever be is due to God and what he's been able to bless me with. It's not me. And so it helps me to remember that. And one of my favorite Bible verses is 2 Corinthians 12:10. I'm just gonna read it because it's really powerful. So that is for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then and only then am I strong. So I realized that when God brings me down to my weakest point, then I rely on him, because other times I'm too busy trying to take the wheel, right? I'm like, I'm a doctor, I know what's going on, let me handle it, let me organize my own life, let me plan my 10, 15-year plan out. And he's like, no, like, I have this. And so when I kind of succumbed to that, when I realized that I need to really focus on him and let him drive the wheel, then that's when I'm at my best. That's when I can do the most, that's when I can touch them in most people's lives. So I'm just going to take a moment to sort of talk about my personal story and how all of this kind of came up for me. So remember, I've been struggling with this, not feeling good enough, feeling like I'm just faking, like people are going to find me out. And so as you may or may not know, to become a doctor, you have to take a lot of tests. A lot of tests, to jump through a lot of hoops. And so if you think about me, dealing with this whole thing of not being good enough, not deserving things, how do you think me and Tess get along? Standardized tests. Not very well. We don't get along very well. So about 5 months ago, finished everything up, but there's this national test that anybody in the world who wants to be a psychologist, we have to take the same test and pass the same test. And this is like a multiple choice test, and you have to, study for a long time and know all of these different areas of psychology, some that you don't even learn in school, but you have to know it for this test. And so as soon as I realized that, I started thinking about like, oh, okay, so now is the time where everybody's gonna figure out that I really don't deserve to be here. Like, I'm gonna fail this test, it's gonna be terrible, my life is gonna end. I started thinking that way. And I had evidence of this, right? Because I actually am a poor test taker. Like, when I took the SAT, barely got a good enough score to get into college. When I took the GRE, which is the test to get into graduate school, barely got by. And I'm not joking, like when I went on my graduate school interview, one of my interviewers laughed in my face about my test score. She said, I laughed at this score because I knew that this is not a score that you would get, somebody at your level would get. It had to be you randomly going through the mark and just marking stuff. And I was like, I really tried on that test. I really tried on that test. But God, right? So, because given all of the stuff that the statistics that they have about the score you need to make, and that's your likelihood of really advancing and going through it, I should not be standing here. I should not have a PhD at the end of my name if we were going after those standards. But thank God that is not his standard. And he knew what he wanted from me. He knew what he wanted from me. And so how many of us know that he will make whatever work? Whatever you get from, as long as you say yes, he will make it work out for you. With man, it's impossible, but with him, it's possible. And I'm a living proof of that. So, but this knowledge, going back to when I had to take the test though, I was like, okay, like, I don't do well with these tests. I have evidence of this. I know that this is not gonna work out well for me. I was really scared. And so I began to think like, okay, now the truth is gonna come out, I'm gonna fail. And I started, with that mindset, I started going on blogs, because I told you everybody nationally has to take this test and not everybody passes. So people create blogs where they like complain and talk about like how I took this test 10 times and I failed 10 times. And I was like, oh, she failed 10 times. That's definitely gonna be me. Like that, it's no way that can be me. And so I just started really going overboard, getting really extreme. Like if I fail this, then my life is gonna be over, then I just need to go, find another career because this is not gonna work out for me. But how many of us can relate to that? Sometimes when we do get in a storm, we start to act that way, like life is gonna be over, we're not gonna make it through to the other side. We stop trusting, we start acting real crazy. And I know I was acting crazy. I was acting real crazy. I was around the house crying. My husband was like, what's wrong with you? I hadn't even taken the test yet, but I was just like, this is not going to work out well. So I was preparing. I prepared hard. I put on the full armor. I studied for months and months on end. I was praying. I was studying. I was praying. But at the same time, I still was not trusting God. Like, the foundation in me was not there. The faith was not there. And so that's when I think about when we talk about feeling hopeless, is when our faith is not strong. And in this situation, my faith was not strong because I was not really trusting God to be strong in the areas that I was being weak in. I was looking at him as more of a backup plan. I was like, God is not a psychologist. He don't know nothing about this test. So, I'll use him like as a backup plan if I don't work out. If what I did doesn't work, then he can take it. And that's not the way to be. That's not the way. I was relying on my own knowledge and my own strength rather than letting him take over and having trust and faith that he was going to make it all work for my good. That's what I needed to be doing. And so this situation really exposed the weak foundation that I had. It was a really weak foundation to get that spooked over y'all, we talking about a test. but it really was like that. And so, we start to fear when these storms come, but if we really have a strong foundation and a strong faith in God, and we know he will not bring anything our way that's not for our good, we won't react in this way. We would not react in this way. So y'all, the morning of the test came, I woke up in tears. Like, I woke up crying. My appointment was at like 9 o'clock, and I got up at like 5 o'clock. I was already crying. Because I was just convinced that I was going to fail this test. I was just like, I already know it's not going to work out, so let me just go ahead in here and give it my best, but I just know it's not going to work out. And so I don't want you to miss the point here, because I'm talking about a test, but I want you to think about for you, your own storms, because storms kind of take these same kind of characteristics on. It's an uncertain situation. You don't know how things are going to work out. It's very painful. It's uncomfortable. And you become afraid. And when we become afraid, we start to doubt God. We stop having faith. We stop being confident in what we've hoped for. We stop being sure of what we can't see. We just stop. But if we're going to have hope in a hopeless world, we got to have faith. Like, for me, that's the answer to, is there really hope in a hopeless world? Yes, if we have faith, if we are confident in what God has for us. And I think it's important because, we ask God, we say, God, make me more like you. I know I always pray, like, God, please increase the fruits of the Spirit in me. Make me more kind, make me more patient, make me more, loving, make me more joyful. But when he answers the prayer, like, this is the opportunity for him to mold and shape me. So when he answers and said, okay, like, yes, I choose you. Let's mold you. Let's take you through some things so you can come out on the other side. And I'm like, oh, never mind. Maybe next week, maybe next year, this is a bad time for me. I'm stressed out right now. Maybe you can change me in about a month. And he's like, no, you asked for this, didn't you? So we have to realize that we have to go through a test to have a testimony, y'all. We have to. There's no way around it. And Paul said, I rejoice in my hardships, right? Because we rejoice because we know that he has us. We know that he has us is only for our good. It's going to be painful for a little while, but it's only for our good. And if we believe that it's only light and momentary, we know it's building something greater for us. It's not going to last forever. It's not going to last forever. And so what happened was, in the midst of my tears, for some reason, like, I sleep with my phone charging right beside me. And so I was laying in the bed crying. I picked up my phone, and I don't know why, but I clicked on the Facebook app. And I looked on Facebook, and one of my friends had posted this song by Terry Mays. And the song says, the main lyrics are, if you can't make it through your storm, how can you say that God is the captain of your life? And I played that song, and y'all, I started crying even more. I was like tears rolling down. But this time I was crying for a different reason though. Like some light bulb went on and I heard that song and it was like, okay, this is what I need. If I really want to be the woman that God has called me to be, it's not about a test. It's deeper than the test. It's about my faith. That he is using this situation to grow my faith. That's what he's doing. I have to be able to have that foresight. But see, my faith was off before until I heard this song. But then I was like, okay, that's what he's doing. If I want to go stronger, I have to be willing to take this test and go through this test. And so I got up, y'all. I listened to that song about 5 times. Because you know, I got up super early. I listened to the song about 5 times. And I went and took that test confident. Like I was confident of what I had hoped for. And I don't miss the point here though. At that point I did not know whether or not I was gonna pass or not. I didn't know. But what was different about this situation is that I was confident that if I didn't pass, it was all a part of God's plan. And that was where he wanted me to be. And it was still going to work out for my good. I was confident in that when I was going to take this test of his plans for me, that I knew he had plans to give me a future and a hope. It wasn't about him trying to hurt me, because sometimes we get in a storm and we're like, well, maybe this is like punishment for that time when I didn't listen to him. And it's not about that. It's about growing you and helping you to be the woman that he wants you to be. And so I want to encourage you with that. Like, keep that in mind. Because in order to be the women that I think God has called us to be, we have to have faith in the midst of our storms. And when I say faith, I'm not talking about this like blind optimism, like, okay, God is going to work everything out. I'm talking about unwavering confidence, like just knowing this is going to work out. Regardless of what happens, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm uncomfortable, I'm in pain, but still I'm going to have confidence. And so I'm talking about a stubborn faith, like that despite everything in the world, all the naysayers, all the people that's telling you, my sister was diagnosed with that and she died 5 days later, and you know, telling you all this crazy stuff, despite that, you still have hope that everything is going to work out in your life the way that God wants you to. And so you don't have to worry and you don't have to act a fool, because you know that it's going to work out for your good. But how do we develop this kind of faith is what I want to talk about. Just 4 more points. I realize I still got the dime going. So just 4 points. How do we develop this faith? So first, we have to build a strong foundation before the storm comes. Before the storm comes, we have to build this foundation so that when it comes, we have the right perspective and we recognize it for what it is. We know what it's for. We know what's going on, because if we don't build that foundation, we are vulnerable to viewing it as like we're hopeless. We're vulnerable to being hopeless if we don't have that strong foundation. So we have to do that first. And second, we have to pray. We have to pray, because we have to ask God continually to open my heart to you. Make me more willing to go through the storms in life, and to help me to be open to having a hopeful demeanor. Because some of us can get caught in, we just, we down all the time, something's always going on. We get caught in this where we're not hopeful, we're hopeless all the time, and that kind of becomes part of our character. So we have to pray to ask God to take that away from us and to help us to be more hopeful. And we have to rejoice in all of our circumstances. And we'll be able to do that when we have that right perspective, that long-term perspective, that this is for my good. Everything that comes to me in life is not to hurt me, it's all for my good. And thirdly, we have to accept the storm for what it is. James says, consider it pure joy. Joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete and not lacking anything. So we have to recognize that's what the storm is for. It's to make us mature so that we're not lacking anything, that we become more and more like Christ. That's the purpose of the storm, not to hurt us. We have to keep that in mind. And we also have to realize that the only way out of the storm is through it. Because how many of us know we try to run around We try to hide and wait it out and see if the storm will go away. And as soon as we wake up, we try to take some medication to numb us out a little bit. And as soon as we wake up, it's waiting right there for you because you haven't gotten the lesson yet. You have not gotten the lesson. And some of us realize like why it keeps coming back up for you over and over again. Maybe you haven't gotten the lesson yet. Maybe that's why it keeps coming back up for you. So we have to realize it for what it is and know that we cannot go around it. We have to go through it, holding God's hand. And lastly, we want to use our storms as an opportunity to pour into someone else's life. That's another reason why we go through it too, is to encourage others. That's what we want to recognize. So those are like my kind of take-home points for you. And so I want to really leave you guys with that song that was so impressionable for me the morning of my test. And so while listening to it, I really invite you, my prayer for you is that you will, close your eyes, be willing, close your eyes, and really meditate and think about what is my personal storm. Like I shared one of mine, I have many, I share one of them. But what does your storm look like? Is it sickness? Is it a failing relationship with a spouse or a family member? Is it unemployment? Is it you keep making the wrong decisions over and over again? Or maybe for you, your struggle is something from long ago in your childhood that you haven't been able to let go of, that you just haven't been able to recover from. Or maybe it's trying to get over past hurts. Maybe it's trying to learn how to trust people again. So whatever your storm is, I invite you to listen to this song and be encouraged.